Hello everybody, welcome back. This week I participated in the Ultimate Cup in Europe. It was supposed to be 9 rounds but ended up being 8 rounds, thankfully. And I just wanted to take you through, I guess, my experience in the Ultimate Cup. I'll show you the deck I was playing as well. I'll take you through my matchups, won't take you that long. And I'll give you some pointers for anybody who's going to be entering some large events like this in the future. I know there's some regionals coming up, which will be super fun. I'm going to be attending one in the UK, which I'm super excited about in June. So hopefully I'll see some people there. Let's get into the whole experience that was the Ultimate Cup. Make sure to go to topdecktcg.com and use code BULB810 for 10% off your next purchase. First off, I want to take you through my deck and what I was playing and why I chose to play this deck. So here is my deck that I played at the Ultimate Cup. I went with the green hybrid deck, but instead of Christmas hybrid, I went with a blue base because honestly, having access to blue cards is insane. The reason I did play this deck was because usually I would have played yellow. And although yellow is a top tier deck, which I think can go very, very far, it goes into time all of the time, and I really did not want to deal with that for a 8 or 9 round tournament. So I went with the green hybrid deck because it's a little bit faster. Now, in fairness, I actually did not go into time once, so I appreciate that. I was able to have breaks in between and try and reset my mind in between matches, which I do think is quite important. Now, I also didn't want to play the blue hybrid deck, which I know is the go-to deck for everyone for these tournaments because blue is undisputed right now. It is the best deck. The problem with playing blue hybrid is unless you are the best blue hybrid player, you are not going to go as far as you think you're going to go with it because everyone else is going to be playing blue. And if you're going to play blue, you'd want to be very, very confident in the blue mirror match. That being said, I also just wanted to play something a little bit different. I didn't want to play blue and I didn't want to play yellow because I've been seeing it a lot and I've been testing this deck quite a bit and I love this deck. If I could do it all over again, I would still choose this deck. I wouldn't choose a different deck. I'd choose different opponents maybe, but that's another story. A quick run through of my deck. I have the Vmons, which is very good because when you swing a Vmon, he's not going to usually die to security because of his jamming. Your opponent either has to deal with the Vmon or face having another free attack essentially. So it kind of forces your opponent to suspend their cards and you want your cards suspended. So once you build up into your Ancient Beetlemon, you have something to attack into, get your piercing, get your trash. So that was kind of the whole idea behind this deck. It's like a bait deck. I played the Madokis and the Sayukas because they were super duper valuable to me and having access to them through blue was really important because it means I had something to put on the egg to get that draw, which you do need to draw a little bit in blue. And it also shuts down hammer sparks and stuff like that, which did come in handy because I wouldn't usually swing for game unless I had a Madoki on board to stop hammer sparks against blue, and that did work. Pokemon is brilliant in this deck because not only does he search your hybrids and your tamers, he also searches your 10 warriors, so your ancient beetles. So being able to have so many different targets to search for was absolutely crazy. So Susano is usually not played in the green hybrid deck. The reason I'm playing him is because of hidden potential discovered. Usually when you're going into Susano, a lot of the time you're going to be passing over your turn. Susano with a hidden potential discovered means you might necessarily not have to pass over your turn because you can make Susano a 2 cost, which is absolutely brilliant. So I wouldn't usually use one without the other. Now, hidden potential discovered did come in clutch a few times when I wanted to go into my ancient beetle, but there wasn't anything suspended, but I didn't want to pass over my turn just yet. Nidhogg, I put it in there as a tech to deal with wide boards, but it didn't really come up. The reason being is when you're building up into your Nidhogg, because you don't have an egg underneath, you have to put your Beetlemon or Beetlemon down and then the Mega Carboteriumon on top of it. It wastes 2 hybrids essentially. Now it would be good in certain situations as a tech card, but in general it didn't really come up on the day. The absolute MVP of this deck, and now I will actually take out a Nidhoggmon and add in a third one, is the Argomon. This card shuts down hybrid players so fast. If they get their Tommies out or they get their Zoes out, all of the important cards that they need, he suspends all tamers and the tamers don't unsuspend, which means when they're digivolving on top of their tamers, they can't attack. And if they can't attack, especially with blue, a lot of the time they can't use their Beowulfmon to strip the sources because I believe he has to be attacking for you to do that. Argomon, absolutely amazing. Overall, I do think the deck performed really, really well. So there's 8 rounds in total. I won 4 rounds and I lost 4 rounds. My matchups are as follows. So round 1, I played against yellow and I 2-0'd them. Yellow is actually one of my hardest matchups, so I did focus mostly on putting my efforts into testing against yellow for a good 4 to 5 days, like just straight of playing yellow. And I was losing a lot, so it really showed that the practice worked. Problem is, I didn't put as much testing against blue as I should have, because I was just assuming that there might be a 50-50 split between people playing blue and yellow. That was my call, and I don't think it was the right call. I did test a bit against blue, so I felt like I had a decent matchup against it, but if I could go back and do anything different, I would practice more against blue. Round 2, I played against a purple BL Star deck. Very cool deck, and it was really tough to go against, but I did win 2-0. I'm very confident playing against purple because I just find it easy to go against. You just get super aggro, and green doesn't have much of a problem going aggro when it needs to, which is great. The next 6 matches the next 6 matches were all blue hybrid. Every single match from here on out was blue hybrid. Every time they flipped the Caramon egg, my heart just sank a little bit more every single time. Like the first few times was fine. So round 3, I lost to 2 hybrid. He 2-0'd me. He was just a very, very good blue hybrid player. Round 4, I 2-0'd a blue hybrid player. Round 5, I lost against blue hybrid, but not 2-0. It was 2-1. But the game was super duper close. Round 6, I won against the blue hybrid player. I 2-0'd him. Round 7, I lost against blue hybrid, and round 8, I lost against blue hybrid. My final standings were 164 out of 500 people in total. I was placement 115 going into my final round, so it was really tough mentally to be playing against blue round after round after round. I was getting so worn out playing against the one deck that it all felt like playing one person, if that makes sense. Now, a few tips I would have for people going into an event like an Ultimate Cup. Test more against the best deck, even if you think that you have the matchup down. If there's a deck that's just constantly winning, make sure you're winning every game when you're testing. I think that's the only way to test against these events, because yeah, you're going to come up against 1 or 2 rogue decks, but then there's going to be other situations where, like mine, you're just going to be 6 rounds of blue hybrid, my guys. That was soul destroying. I'm not going to lie. I went into my final round and I had such a headache from staring at blue. Tip number 2 is, if you are having a problem with your opponent, call the judge. Don't feel so. One of my faults, I will say, is I'm very bad for calling a judge, as in I won't do it because I feel bad for the other player, and I'm like trying to give them the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time. But if you're coming up against slow players, call a judge. Or tell your opponent, can they speed it up a little bit? I don't do that. And I should. I'm learning. I'm trying. Be polite. Always be polite. Like, don't be like, hurry the fuck up. Just be like, oh, sorry, can we move this on a little bit faster, please?
If you could please hurry the fuck up, it would be greatly appreciated.
I see no issue with that. Another one is, if your opponent doesn't have the best setup and you can't see things properly, or you can't hear what they're saying properly, I would call a judge on that. Because one of my matches now, his setup was really janky and I couldn't see the board 100%. Like, there was some glares, which is fine. That part wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was I couldn't actually hear what he was saying, and I was continuously asking him to repeat himself. But especially when you're against a deck like blue hybrid that stuns things and you don't know what's stunned and what isn't, that can be very difficult, and that can win or lose you games. You shouldn't be losing a game that you could potentially win because of your opponent's setup. I do believe in that. I mean, I think if people are going to be playing online, you do need to invest in a decent camera and maybe a decent microphone. Like, it doesn't have to be top tier. There are super budget options out there that work perfectly. Just as a side note on that. So, like, don't be scared to call a judge if you need to. Like, if somebody called a judge against me, I would not be offended whatsoever. I'd be like, oh, okay, Jesus, I won't be doing that again. You know, it's not a case of people being offended or not. It is just a case of you want to be getting the best of your experience. And if you think you can do better but aren't able to because of what your opponent is doing, then that's not fair on you. Tip number 3, have a lot of coffee. Coffee was a lifesaver for my day, which was really good.
I don't.
And probably the fourth tip I will say is play a deck you're comfortable with. So don't feel like you have to play a meta deck. I know to win a lot of the times, the majority of players are going to play a meta deck. That's just the way it is. But I think that if you are comfortable with your deck and your deck isn't like janky, I play a lot of jank decks in my time. I still play a lot of jank decks and still top locals with my jank decks because I know what my cards do down to a T and I know what my opponent's cards do down to a T. You can still win with a deck that is not a tier 1 deck. Play the deck that you want to play and that you're interested in, because if you're going to have to sit through 9 rounds of a tournament, you are going to want to like your bloody deck. Like, I still love this green hybrid deck. We have 1 or 2 more weeks left of this format and I'm going to a tournament next weekend and I'm continuing to play with my green deck because I'm not ready to give this up yet. I know a lot of people are ready for the next format and I have prepped for it, so I am ready when it does come out, but I'm kind of happy to just enjoy this deck a little bit longer, and I know everyone going up to that tournament is not going to be playing blue hybrid, thankfully. Otherwise I'll just take their cards and eat them or something. There's no ruling against eating your opponent's cards apparently, so let's do that. So that is my tips, that was my deck, that was my experience. I had a really fun day despite the copious amounts of the same deck I was playing against. I really enjoyed playing my deck and figuring it out as I went along, even though I was super comfortable with it. The different scenarios you're put in it and you're like able to figure out, oh, I can do this, or this is a way out of this. It can be so much fun. Like something I realized only a few days before the actual tournament itself is Ancient Beetlemon's effect, for example. When you attack an opponent or attack an opponent's Digimon and kill it with your Ancient Beetlemon, you get to trash the top card of their security. So the actual words, when one of your Digimon with 10 warriors are hybrid, attacks and deletes an opponent's Digimon, trash the top card. So it doesn't have to be him. It can actually just be another hybrid card on the board that just kills one of the dudes, and then it can trash and delete if you don't want to get rid of your Ancient Beetlemon. You don't even need to be attacking with him. You can attack with your other hybrids and just leave him on board until you're ready to go for game. That was something really cool, and it did come up in the tournament quite a bit for me. I would also say don't drop after round 3 unless you are just a collector and you're only entering that tournament for that specific thing. If you're getting frustrated, it's good to play it to the end. You feel much better than you do dropping. I think that as well. Anyone else who was playing in the Ultimate Cups all around the world, let me know how you got on. I heard about Carta Magica. I'm really sorry for you guys. Oh, and finally, I also want to say a huge thank you to Card Market for hosting the Ultimate Cup. You did a fantastic job of doing it online. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.